Is the US planning an invasion of Iran? In the past few days, we've seen Donald Trump talking about the possibility of the US seizing Kharg Island with a preference to taking its oil. And on the surface, this sounds like a potential plan to cripple Iran. But when you start to look at how the operation might take place and what the immediate response might be from Iran, it then becomes clear it's not such a good idea after all. But before we get to Kharg Island itself, I think it's important to look at where the war is right now. Now, the US and Israel have been conducting limited strikes on Iran for the past few weeks now, destroying a lot of Iran's naval and air capability. And I say limited because it hasn't been a free-for-all. There's been very low, limited civilian casualties, obviously unfortunate, but they haven't been just bombing indiscriminately. Iran, in turn, has responded by attacking targets mostly of commercial value in neighboring countries and also effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz, as we've seen now. The US are claiming that they've effectively defeated Iran and have made regular announcements about how many ballistic missile launch facilities have been destroyed, ships being sunk, aircraft destroyed, other military assets taken out. But the one thing that we haven't seen is a substantial reduction in the number of drone attacks or drones being launched from Iran. So I think it's safe to say that Iran is still very much sees itself as in the fight. And in the past few days, we've also seen the Houthis in Yemen announce that they'll be entering the war, obviously on the side of Iran, as they were an Iranian proxy, which will most likely result in strikes against Israel, but also potentially against shipping in the Red Sea. Another thing also to consider here, and I don't want to go too far away from Kharg Island, is that the Houthis have also cooperated in the past with militia groups in Somalia. So there's also a possibility that could actually spread further south and affect the Gulf of Aden. Trump claims that there's been regime change in Iran by virtue of the fact that the senior leadership has been killed and other leaders have taken over. But I think it's important to note that this is the same regime that was in power before the war started. The regime itself hasn't changed, it's just the senior leadership. The same organization is still running Iran. So at the moment, what we're seeing is Hormuz is effectively closed. Iranian drones are still hitting commercial and civilian targets in the region. I also wanted to just show you how simple the infrastructure needs to be to launch these drones. They don't need anything sophisticated like a ballistic missile launch site, no radar facilities. It can be launched from the back of a pickup truck, or several of them can be put in the back of a large truck in a container and driven anywhere in the country and launched from there. And that's what makes them so dangerous. They just need to input guidance coordinates into the system, into the missile, into the drone. And that does it from there. So it's got a booster rocket that launches it up, and then from there the motor takes place. So why Kharg Island? Now, Iran gets the majority of its income from foreign income from oil, and the majority of that gets shipped from Kharg Island. But I think it's important to understand that seizing Kharg Island doesn't give you access or control of Iran's oil. You have to think of Kharg Island in terms of a hose pipe. Kharg Island would be the opening at the end of the hose pipe. So all that Iran is going to do is just turn off the tap further up the line. So they're going to turn off the supply to Kharg Island. So seizing the island itself doesn't give the US or whoever takes it control of Iran's oil. Now, the island itself is also only 28 kilometers from the Iranian mainland, which means that it's well within range of Iranian drones and missiles, and also artillery. So once the US invades Kharg Island, it has to dig in and it has to hold it. And that's the problem. Iran knows this and will most definitely deploy a lot of its drones and other resources to attack the island itself. And there are only so many places for the US to dig in on that island because it is very, very small. Now, in a previous video, I indicated that that Iran can likely build several thousand of these drones per month, and it's only used a small percentage of them in the war so far. So it is withholding a large amount of those in stock. So attacking and holding that island would be incredibly costly in terms of American lives. Now, some people might question why the Iranian regime would attack its own infrastructure if the US is holding it, but I think it's important to remember that this is the same regime that has no problem in killing large numbers of its own people. So in order to protect the forces holding Kharg Island, the only option then would be to actually launch a broader scale invasion of the mainland to kind of push Iranian forces back. But then this creates another set of problems for the US. Iran isn't a small country, and even if only a small percentage of the population actively supports the current Islamic regime and the RGC, this could easily work out to 5, 10, 15 million people, maybe even more. And this is not counting the RGC or its militia, both of whom are radically loyal to the Ayatollah and to the ruling elite. So invading even a portion of Iran would be incredibly costly in terms of American lives. And then we get to the Strait of Hormuz, because remember, Kharg Island is quite far from Hormuz, so it doesn't affect anything that goes on there. So even if the US does succeed in invading the territory surrounding Hormuz, this doesn't mean that the strait will be opened. Iran can still effectively hit shipping from deep inside the country. So then the question becomes, is the US going to invade even further? Is it going to attempt to take the whole country just to open up the Strait of Hormuz? And at some point, the US needs to realize that ratcheting up aggression against an asymmetric opponent like Iran doesn't work, because they most likely have the ability to survive longer than the US's political will to keep fighting. And in a previous video, I mentioned there that Iran sees this, or the Iranian regime sees this war as a war of survival. The US is most definitely is a war of choice. So I think that's where the difference comes in. And it's ultimately about who can survive longer, who has the political will to survive longer.